just to see what we're up against from the other side of the Senate aisle, Tim Kaine, U.S. Senator, the man who was almost one heartbeat away from becoming the second woman president, Tim Kaine, gave a speech yesterday on the Senate floor in which he blamed America for inventing slavery. And the only problem with Tim Kaine's speech is that it was completely untrue.
We need to do much more within the criminal justice system, but also within all of our systems, to dismantle the structures of racism that our federal, state, and local governments carefully erected and maintained over centuries. We know a little bit about this in Virginia. The first African Americans into the English colonies came to Point Comfort, Virginia in 1619. They were slaves. They'd been captured against their will. But they landed in colonies that didn't have slavery. There were no laws about slavery in the colonies at that time. The United States didn't inherit slavery from anybody. We created it.
I think maybe Tim Kaine should check up on his history. Actually, in the Declaration of Independence, written by that guy who got canceled, Thomas Jefferson, Jefferson complains about how the incipient United States inherited slavery from the British and complained about that as an institution that has had a negative impact on the country. Where does Tim Kaine think the slaves came from when they landed in Virginia? The slaves came from Africa, and they were bought from African slave traders, people who still practice slavery to this day. Slavery still practiced in the Middle East to this day. Slavery still practiced in East Asia to this very day. As a matter of fact, not only did the United States not invent slavery, because slavery goes back not just to those slave traders in the centuries before the United States came to be, it goes all the way back to ancient Egypt, for instance. Might behoove Mr. Kaine to read the Bible, see what the Egyptians did to the Jews in Egypt. Goes back throughout all of human history. Ironically, the West is the only place that's ever abolished slavery. It's not that we invented slavery, we didn't, but we did abolish it, and virtually no one else has. That's a good thing. Ironically, Tim Kaine mentions how slavery came to Virginia. The first officially declared owner of an arbitrarily declared slave for life, right, the beginning of what we would call our modern system of slavery in America, was a black man. He was a black man from Angola. Now, obviously, slavery then went on to become a highly racialized system that led to racial consequences that went on for centuries. But it shows you that the situation of how slavery began, much more complicated than Mr. Kaine would have you believe. A lot of people believe this thing. If a sitting U.S. senator believes a lie like this, think about how many people have been taught the very same lie. Our goal as conservatives, our job, is to push back against those things, and yet, unfortunately, we keep giving into left-wing premises. President Trump announced yesterday a big police reform plan in the Rose Garden. The plan is receiving mixed reviews. I will tell you the good, the bad, and the ugly. Here's the president.
Thank you all for being here as we take historic action to deliver a future of safety and security for Americans of every race, religion, color, and creed. We're joined today by law enforcement professionals and community leaders. Though we may all come from different places and different backgrounds, we're united by our desire to ensure peace and dignity and equality for all Americans.
Okay, of course, we believe all of this. It's good that President Trump is taking charge. We need strong leadership as the cities are burning. But is this the way to do it? Police reform. If I had my druthers, if I were advising the president, I would have President Trump release an executive order on criminal justice reform that puts more of these criminals burning the cities down into prison. I think that's probably the better angle. I think, unfortunately, some of President Trump's advisors are convincing him to buy into the left-wing premise that the police are hopelessly racist and bigoted and slaughtering innocent black men around the country. We know that isn't happening. Okay, we have the statistics. We went through them just last week, I think, on the show. How many unarmed black men were killed by police last year? And by the way, unarmed does not mean not dangerous. Unarmed does not mean that the use of force was not justified. But let's even use that number, unarmed. How many? 9,000? No. 900? No. 90? No. It's 9. Every death is a tragedy. But 9 is not evidence of systemic police brutality and racism. And yet that's the premise that the left wants us to buy into, and it wants us to buy into that so that they can get their agenda in there without really having to sell it to the American people. If you enjoyed that video, and let's be honest, of course you did, I hope you did, be sure to hit the subscribe button so everyone wading through the wasteland of YouTube knows that we have the best content out there.